Chapter 67A, Trust-Based Society versus the opposite and the long-term outcomes. A first disclaimer. All persons in this book are fictional. All claims, regardless of topic, are just that, claims. Some are rooted in empirical facts, while others are pure imagination. My aim is to balance vision and reality, fiction and fact, in such a way that readers can recognize themselves and build further on the multitude of ideas and notions presented. The book has no ambition to preach an overarching goal, but instead questions accepted truths. In this way, in a Socratic spirit, the rest is left to the audience. Joran struggled with thoughts about trust after a meeting at Det Fri Ord, a non-profit organization focused on freedom of expression, often encouraging bold speech. He felt fortunate to live in Norway, a democratic country with a constitution grounded in humanistic pillars, and with a solid portion of Christian ethics reassuringly embedded. We like to highlight this country as the best in the world when it came to freedom of speech and expression. Without boasting, we had, over time, built a society on sound values drawn from the Enlightenment, the American Declaration of Independence, blended with Greek philosophy and Christian ethics. Not bad. Now, however, the nation had become a market liberal, secular state. Fine in many ways, but problems were piling up. Joran had never been particularly concerned with large ideological projects and their influence on the geopolitical landscape. After the meeting at Det Fri Ord, he was forced to think differently. A professor of intellectual history from the University of Oslo had lectured on ancient attitudes toward a diversity of ideas and the ability to distinguish between good and bad ones. He had discussed Byzantine culture in Greece long before Christ and their pragmatic view of what worked in society and what did not. At that time, they were a superpower in shipping and trade, especially widespread from the northern Aegean Sea through the Bosporus Strait and along the lands bordering the Black Sea. They were exceptionally diligent in recording all events, especially detailed accounts of trade in goods and services. This led them to discover natural patterns of what worked and did not work in market terms. It is said they developed the best economic system to date, a combination of market liberalism with guiding regulations. What we today would call a social democratic mixed economy. Useful to keep in mind in the right-left political debate that we loudly consume in today's noisy media society. But the professor did not stop there. He introduced ethics and morality as overarching guidelines in this review. Experience had shown that a trade regime based on trust worked best, but that establishing trust was difficult. Still, large parts of the population in this region managed to build trust, and prosperity soon followed. He further explained that extensive free trade combined with trust-based agreements led to success. Those who failed to achieve this tended to over-regulate trade, fraud and theft then became the norm. These groups failed to achieve prosperity and gradually disintegrated, or were transformed into criminal terror enclaves. Joran, with his background on the far political left, a group known as the MLers, a Marxist-Leninist faction that had grown steadily in the small country of Norway, reflected on this. Ideas from around the world had reached this quiet, relatively poor population far north even before oil wealth flowed into the country. Yet few were familiar with the Byzantine civilization's experiences with well-known political challenges and how best to solve them. Joran could not get it out of his mind, especially this word, trust. A trust-based society. What does it really mean? It is not complicated. It means you trust your neighbor. Ideally, you can leave your front door open around the clock. No alarm systems needed. You trust that your neighbor will not steal from you, that they sort waste properly and manage their household according to sound environmental and climate guidelines. You trust that your neighbor speaks the truth when discussing news and daily events. And you expect the same from yourself. Together, you build a community of trust, which in turn forms the foundation for prosperity and development. Joran had much to think about, but he wanted to share these thoughts with someone he could trust. His old friends from the ML group had scattered, but he thought his relatively new friends, Walter and Freiman, might be receptive to these ideas. He called them both, and a meeting at Dagmar's cafe was arranged for next Tuesday at 12:30.